Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we dig through the research, the guidance, all the wisdom out there, really, to pull out the signal from the noise for you.
And there's so much noise these days, isn't there?
Absolutely. We're living in this age that feels just defined by distraction, the constant phone notifications, endless demands on our time, and, that nagging feeling that if you're not sprinting, you must be falling behind.
Hmm. That sense of urgency, it's almost chronic. It leads to this weird situation where we feel incredibly busy, almost frantic, but
Hmm.
often there's this uh, lack of real meaningful progress. Like we're just spinning our wheels.
Exactly. Moving, but maybe not going anywhere you actually chose to go.
Right. Just reacting.
Which is precisely why today's deep dive is, I think, so essential. We're looking at a really clear, structured framework. It's designed specifically to combat that chaos.
No.
We're digging into the core guidance from Focus on What Matters. It essentially distills actionable wisdom, a lot of it based on practical Stoic concepts, into a kind of blueprint for finding clarity and, frankly, peace in modern life.
So the mission for you, listening in, isn't just about learning some new facts. It's more like getting an operating system upgrade for your life.
I like that, an OS upgrade.
Yeah. We want to uncover the philosophy, but the actionable philosophy that lets you cut out the stuff that just drains your energy. And instead, align your daily habits with what you truly value long term, so that your busyness actually translates into something meaningful.
And this is really for anyone who feels, perpetually overwhelmed. Maybe you look successful on paper, but inside things feel fragmented. Or maybe you just want to weigh into practical philosophy, but without wading through, dense academic texts.
This is that entry point. It's designed to turn ancient guidance into practical, real-world behavior change.
Okay, so where do we start? How do we unpack this?
Well, I think we have to start with the way this guidance is delivered, because the structure itself, the format, is actually one of its most powerful features for learning effectively.
Right. Let's talk about the architecture then. The structure and style as a learning tool. So the source material uses this unique format, right? Letter essays.
Exactly. Short, focused essays, usually just, 2 to 4 pages each. They're really built for reflection, not just consumption.
And what's the benefit of that brevity? Why does that work so well?
Well, think about cognitive load. For someone who's curious, who wants the knowledge, but is maybe already feeling overloaded, this format is perfect. It doesn't ask you to digest, 80 pages of dense theory all at once.
Okay.
You get a single self-contained idea. You can chew on it, reflect, maybe even try a small exercise related to it before the next concept comes along. It really resects your time and avoids that feeling of being overwhelmed by the information itself. That feeling often just tanks our good intentions. Right?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I find that structure really effective because it lowers the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Like you can actually absorb a pretty profound lesson while you're waiting for your coffee or during a 5-minute break.
Turning downtime into intentional progress.
Exactly. It allows for this incremental absorption of wisdom, which, as we'll probably discuss later, is kind of the secret sauce for building habits that actually stick. Little bits consistently.
And this style, it's not pulled out of thin air.
Yeah.
It has this really powerful classical inspiration. It's directly modeled after Seneca's letters from a Stoic.
Seneca. Okay, tell us more about that connection.
Well, Seneca was writing these direct, intensely personal letters with advice to his friend Lucilius. And this was happening during a really chaotic, politically messy time in Roman history.
That context feels incredibly relevant now, doesn't it? I mean, Seneca's world had social upheaval, political instability, real personal danger.
Mm.
It doesn't sound entirely dissimilar to our own era of, constant technological and social disruption.
It really doesn't. And by adopting that direct, personal, almost urgent tone, the advice in Focus on What Matters kind of bypasses the feeling of reading a dry textbook. It feels more like a conversation, like you're getting advice from a wise guide who actually gets the friction of trying to live well in a messy world.
That approachability, that feeling of connection, it leads right into the next point, doesn't it? The goal, bridging philosophy and life change. This isn't just theory.
Absolutely not. The whole text is designed to be practical and accessible. The aim is to take philosophy off the academic shelf and put it directly into your toolkit for living a better life.
So less about abstract concepts, more about actual application.
Precisely. It focuses purely on guidance you can actually use, things that have a practical impact. But the real engine for that transformation, the thing that bridges knowing something and actually doing it,
What if
it's the inclusion of specific exercises or reflection questions that are embedded right into many of the letters. That's the key mechanism.
Ah, okay. So it's not just presenting the idea, it's prompting action. Give me an example.
Okay, so you might read a short piece about the value of gratitude,
Right.
right? And then right at the end, it prompts you. List 3 unexpected good things that happened today and maybe why they were surprising.
Ah, I see. So it forces you right then and there to actually practice the principle. It takes the abstract idea of gratitude and makes you perform a concrete mental action.
Exactly. That little nudge helps bridge the gap between thinking, oh, that's a nice idea, and actually internalizing it, making it part of how you operate.
And the ultimate goal, the target state for the listener.
It's achieving clarity, finding peace, and making more meaningful progress. It's about making sure your momentum, your energy in life, is directed by your own internal values, your purpose, not just being dragged along by external pressures, deadlines, or what everyone else seems to be doing.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The structure is built for easy learning and quick application. So, with that foundation, let's dive into the core themes themselves. And it seems like the first batch are all about mastering our internal world. That has to come first, right?
Absolutely. You can't effectively change your external circumstances until you get a handle on your internal landscape.
All right. So, the moment we start talking about cutting through the noise, reducing that overwhelm, we absolutely have to address what feels like the cornerstone concept of this whole philosophy. Theme one, the dichotomy of control.
Hmm. This is foundational.
Yeah.
It's really the prerequisite for any kind of inner peace or effective action.
Mhm.
And the core principle, it's almost brutally simple.
Okay, what is it?
Place all your effort, all your energy, all your focus only on things that are actually within your power to influence.
And what does that include?
Primarily your thoughts, your specific actions, and how you choose to respond to external events. That's your domain.
Okay, that sounds logical, but where's the difficulty? I feel like most people would nod along and say, yeah, that makes sense, but we still spend so much time worrying about things outside that circle.
Ah, the friction comes from our very human but ultimately counterproductive desire for control over everything, for certainty, and often for external validation. We just pour catastrophic amounts of mental and emotional energy into agonizing over stuff we simply cannot change.
Like what? Give some examples.
Other people's opinions of us, whether we get that job after the interview, how the stock market behaves, a sudden illness hitting someone. The source material is really clear. Worrying about these external things isn't productive preparation. It's just wasted energy, pure drain.
Oh, okay, let's make this concrete. Use an example. Say you're leading a big project at work, something important, and suddenly, due to factors totally outside your control, maybe a key supplier goes bankrupt, the whole project is now at risk of failing. How does the dichotomy of control apply right then?
Okay, great example.
Mm.
The dichotomy demands you immediately differentiate what's in your control, what's not. You absolutely cannot control the fact that the supplier went bankrupt. That's the external event. It's happened.
Right.
But you can 100% control your response. Do you spend the next 3 days railing against the unfairness, blaming the supplier, maybe spiraling into self-pity? That's an uncontrolled, unhelpful response. Or do you immediately take control of your next steps? Analyze the impact. Communicate clearly and transparently to your team and stakeholders. Maybe start working on contingency plan B or C. That's the controlled, effective response, focusing only on what you can do now.
That's a really powerful reframe, but I can imagine some listeners thinking, okay, accepting what I can't control, doesn't that sound a bit passive? Like giving up or just being apathetic?
That's a common misunderstanding, but it's actually the complete opposite. Acceptance, in the Stoic sense, is not surrender or apathy. It's the absolute prerequisite for taking effective action.
Oh, so.
Think about it. If you spend your limited energy, your focus, fighting reality, wishing the supplier hadn't gone bankrupt, complaining about it, you have zero resources left to actually deal with the situation as it is.
Right, you're stuck arguing with the past.
Exactly. Accepting the reality of the external event, however unpleasant, is the only way to free up your mental bandwidth to formulate a positive, resource-efficient, and controlled response to it. This distinction isn't passive. It's the pathway to peace and avoiding that emotional chaos.
Okay, that clarification is crucial. Acceptance enables action. Got it. So once we start rooting ourselves and controlling our response, we hit the next big challenge, how we relate to time. If the dichotomy saves us energy on external events, then theme two, grounding in the present moment, seems to save us from, like, emotional time travel.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. This theme analyzes where a lot of our chronic modern stress actually comes from. The guidance points out that most human suffering isn't caused by the present moment itself, but by our minds projecting outwards from it.
How does that work?
We either get stuck ruminating on the past, regrets, mistakes we made, things someone said, old hurts, or we spin out into the future, catastrophizing, worrying endlessly about what might go wrong.
Okay, I feel this one personally. It's tough, especially when you have real deadlines looming or maybe a big financial worry on the horizon. It feels like that future-focused worry is necessary preparation sometimes. How does the source suggest we shut down that anxiety loop?
But that's the critical distinction it makes. There's a huge difference between productive planning and anxious spiraling. Productive planning is dealing with reality in the present, making a to-do list now, having that difficult conversation now, putting money aside now,
Versus,
versus anxious spiraling, which is just indulging in negative fictional stories about what might happen in the future. It's unproductive mental churning. The remedy the source proposes is to deliberately, consciously bring yourself back, to find meaning, find contentment, find simple awareness right now in this moment.
it pushes back against that very common human tendency to postpone living, doesn't it? We say, oh, I'll finally be happy when I retire, or things will be good once I get that promotion, or I can relax after this huge project is finished. We're always deferring the good life to some point in the future.
Exactly. And the source material really stresses that the value, the meaning, the actual satisfaction of our existence is fundamentally found now, in the current moment. You have to learn to find satisfaction in the process and the steps you're taking today.
Because if you can't find some peace or meaning in the journey,
Then reaching some arbitrary future destination won't magically deliver it. You'll just find another reason to be dissatisfied or anxious. You'll just move the goalposts. The real value is in the intention and the integrity of how you act today.
control our responses, root ourselves in the present. Okay? But even with those tools, life happens. Stuff goes wrong. Things go sideways inevitably. Which transitions us nicely to theme 3. Mindset and resilience. How do we handle the unavoidable difficulties?
Yes, this is the Stoic take on hardship, and it's
Actually-
absolutely crucial. The source material doesn't paint some fantasy picture where you can avoid difficulties or failures or loss. It's very clear. These things are unavoidable. They're non-negotiable parts of being human.
So the wisdom isn't in dodging them.
No, not at all. The wisdom lies entirely in your relationship to these events, how you frame them, how you respond to them.
Right, it's that opportunity perspective again. Instead of seeing a failure or a loss or a setback as like a final judgment or a disaster.
You reframe it. You see these inevitable bumps as opportunities, chances to build character, to gain wisdom, to develop genuine mental and emotional strength. The event itself, if you strip away your interpretation, is basically neutral data. It's your interpretation and your subsequent response that determine everything.
Okay, so it's about the reframe. But does the guidance give us practical tools for actually doing that reframing, especially when things feel really difficult, maybe even devastating?
It does. It provides a specific practical toolkit, and it emphasizes that using these tools consistently is key. The main ones are reflection, gratitude, and acceptance.
Okay, let's unpack those. Reflection makes sense looking back, learning the lesson. Acceptance, we've touched on not fighting reality. But gratitude.
Yeah.
How does gratitude help when you've just faced a major setback? That seems counterintuitive.
Gratitude works by deliberately shifting the focus, the aperture of your attention. When something bad happens, it's natural to focus only on what was lost or what went wrong.
Yeah.
Your whole world shrinks to that negative event.
Right.
Gratitude forces you to widen the lens again. Even taking just a moment to consciously list, say, 3 things you're still thankful for. Maybe it's your health, maybe it's a supportive friend, maybe it's just the roof over your head, or even the lesson learned from the failure. It shifts your brain state. It moves you away from scarcity and lack and reminds you of the resources and abundance that still remain.
Okay, I see. It counteracts the brain's negativity bias.
Exactly. And reflection turns the negative event into objective data. What happened? Why? What can I learn? And acceptance, as we said, frees you up to respond effectively instead of just reacting emotionally. Using these tools together ensures that over time, every challenge you face actually leaves you stronger and better equipped for the next one.
Okay, so that internal clarity, getting a handle on control, presence, resilience, that's the foundation. Absolutely essential. But it's kind of useless if it just stays inside your head, right? It needs to translate into real-world choices and actions.
Precisely. Which brings us to the next set of themes. These are about how we align our external actions with that internal clarity. And the first one is a big one. Theme 4, simplicity in defining enough.
Ah, Enough. That word feels almost countercultural today.
It really is. And this section of the guidance is a necessary, sometimes uncomfortable confrontation with our modern consumer culture, with that relentless drive to just chase more.
More success, more money, more stuff, more recognition, more productivity hacks.
Exactly. More, more, more. The text explicitly pushes back against that perpetual motion machine, because that endless chasing is arguably one of the single biggest root causes of the chronic overwhelm so many people feel.
That pressure to constantly maximize every minute, optimize every corner of your life, it is absolutely exhausting. So if the guidance tells us to stop chasing more, what should we be chasing instead?
Clarity. And the path to clarity, according to this philosophy, is through simplicity. The core argument is about figuring out what enough actually looks like for you.
For me personally, not based on comparison.
Right. This is a deeply personal and sometimes confronting exercise. It's not about achieving what your neighbor has, or hitting the benchmark set by your industry rival, or matching the curated lives you see on social media. It's about defining for yourself the point at which you have enough time, enough money, enough recognition, enough possessions to support your own primary values and purpose in life.
This feels like it directly tackles that feeling of being pulled in a million directions, which I know is a huge pain point for listeners.
Mhm.
Because if you haven't consciously defined your enough,
Then your boundaries are basically non-existent, right?
Mm.
External expectations, the lure of status, vague anxieties about future security, those things will always dictate where your time and energy go because you haven't set your own internal marker.
so defining enough is almost like an act of self-defense.
That's a great way to put it. It's proactive self-defense for your attention and energy. If you know, truly know deep down, that achieving, say, this level of income or career success is sufficient to support what you really value, maybe that's family time, creative pursuits, community involvement, then you gain the power to clearly and confidently say no.
No to the things outside that circle, the things that demand more of your essential resources for goals that aren't actually yours.
Exactly. Simplicity, achieved by defining enough, protects your attention. And your attention is arguably your most valuable non-renewable resource.
Okay, but here's a point of friction. What happens when your personal definition of enough clashes with external realities? Like, what if it's incompatible with the demands of your current job? Or, maybe even more painfully, what if it clashes with your partner's definition of enough?
That's a very real tension. The source acknowledges this. It emphasizes that your definition of enough has to be anchored in your foundational ethical values, the things that fall under your dichotomy of control. Meaning, you ultimately can't control your spouse's expectations or your company's relentless push for growth. That's external. But you can control how clearly and consistently you communicate your own values and boundaries. And ultimately, you can control which environments you choose to participate in.
So if an environment consistently demands that you push past your own internal enough point,
It will inevitably start to erode your core values, which then requires a choice. Maybe it's a difficult conversation, maybe it's seeking a different role, maybe it's fundamentally changing the environment. It forces you to move from a philosophical idea to a potentially hard choice about living with integrity.
and making those hard choices, following through, requires discipline, which leads us perfectly into theme 5, action and discipline. You can define enough and map out your values all day long, but without the discipline to act on it.
It's just wishful thinking, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a really strong, almost uncompromising point in the source material. Simply knowing what matters, having the intellectual understanding, it isn't sufficient, not even close.
This sounds like the difference between being like a fan of philosophy versus actually trying to live philosophically.
That's it, precisely. Daily habits, consistent action,
Yeah.
and rigorous discipline. These are framed as absolutely essential. They're the mechanisms for converting that internal clarity we talked about into an external life that actually reflects it.
Okay, but we all know discipline can be hard. Willpower often fails us, especially when we're tired or stressed. How does the text recommend we make sure that discipline actually sticks? What's the method?
It really emphasizes starting small. Incremental, simple changes that compound over time. The methodology it suggests is basically incorporating those short, specific practices we mentioned earlier, the 5-minute reflection, the moment of gratitude before reacting, the intentional pause, the kinds of things often prompted in the letters themselves.
So you're not aiming for some massive life-altering overhaul overnight.
No, definitely not. You're aiming for, say, 100% consistency on one manageable small action. Maybe it's the 2-minute journaling rule, making its starting friction so low it's almost negligible.
Right, make it easy to start.
Exactly, because it's that continuous small effort that discipline applied daily, even when you don't feel like it, that becomes the engine driving real, tangible life change. It turns the abstract idea of living according to my values into the concrete reality of, okay, today, in this moment, I chose my action based on what matters most. It builds the habit muscle.
That makes sense. Discipline through small, consistent habits. Now, we've spent a lot of time here on self-control, self-improvement, defining your internal world. It could almost start to feel a bit inwardly focused, maybe even selfish if taken too far.
That's a fair point. But the guidance explicitly addresses this. It makes it very clear that this whole journey isn't just about personal peace. It mandates integrity in your outer life, too. Which brings us to theme 6, relationships and virtue.
Okay, so broadening the focus outward.
Yes, this is the crucial extension. True Stoic-inspired clarity isn't meant to be hoarded just for your own benefit. It must manifest in how you interact with the world, with other people. So this theme shifts the focus from just inward reflection to your outer life.
How you treat others.
Exactly. The value you place on genuine connection. Maintaining kindness, honesty, integrity, ethical behavior in your day-to-day interactions.
So let's say my defined core value is integrity. But then maybe I gossip about colleagues behind their backs, or I constantly make promises to friends or family that I don't follow through on.
Then, according to this philosophy, you're fundamentally failing to live it out, regardless of how insightful your morning reflection might have been.
Right. The actions don't match the internal state.
Precisely. Virtue, in this practical context, is simply the application of your internal clarity and values to the world around you. The source emphasizes that the health of your relationships and your community is actually a direct reflection of your own internal health and integrity.
So you can't achieve, like, true, lasting inner peace if your daily actions are simultaneously eroding trust and respect with the people around you.
That's the argument. It mandates living with integrity within the community. It ensures the clarity you cultivate internally is reflected in how you show up for others. It's almost like the final real-world check on whether your defined values are actually real.
Okay, this feels like the perfect transition. We've explored the philosophy, the core themes. Now let's get super practical. Let's distill this down into the toolkit for immediate implementation. What are the concrete actions, the key takeaways from the source that you, the listener, can put into practice, like, right now?
Yes, let's pull together the most powerful leverage points. And the absolute starting point, the thing that really informs everything else, has to be defining the compass, values and boundaries.
Right. Action step 1, define your values. This seems foundational, but it's also where I think a lot of people get stuck. They know they should prioritize, but they lack that clear guiding star, that internal compass.
And the text is clear. If you don't know what truly matters most to you, maybe it's integrity, maybe it's family connection, creativity, contributing to something larger than yourself,
Yeah.
then every potential choice, every opportunity that comes your way will feel equally valid.
Which leads directly to overwhelm.
Yes.
Because you can't do everything.
Exactly. You have no filter. The defining process itself doesn't need to be some huge, complex thing initially. It can start with simple questions like,
Yeah.
what behavior, if I consistently neglected it, would cause me the deepest sense of regret 5 years from now?
That's a powerful question.
Isn't it? Is it neglecting time with your kids? Is it putting off that creative project year after year? Is it not speaking up for what's right? The answers start to reveal your non-negotiable core values. And once those are clear, decision-making gets simpler. You can ask, does this task or opportunity directly support my core value of connection or contribution? Or is it just busyness?
Okay, so first, define the values. Set the internal compass. Then, the logical next step is protecting that direction from all the external noise and demands, which is action step 2, set boundaries.
Yes. This is where you translate those defined values into practical defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, it requires learning the often difficult art of saying no more often.
Saying no. We often fail here because it feels uncomfortable, maybe rude, we don't want to disappoint people. How does the source frame this to make it easier?
It frames it as a simple equation of resource allocation. Saying yes to something that does not align with your core values or pushes you past your defined enough is automatically, by definition, saying no to something that does align.
Because your time and attention are finite.
Exactly. You're protecting those essential finite resources, your time, your energy, your focus, by guarding the perimeter of your values and your enough. Saying no isn't negative, it's protecting the positive.
Can you give the listener some practical ways to say no effectively, especially, say, in a professional setting where the pressure to say yes is high?
Sure. The guidance implicitly supports things like the preemptive no or structured deferral, instead of instantly saying, yeah, sure, I can squeeze that in, which immediately overcommits you.
Right, the default, yes.
You use a prepared script, something like, thanks for thinking of me for this. Right now, my core focus is committed to finishing Project X to meet its deadline. Could we potentially revisit this next Tuesday if it's still a priority then?
Ah, okay. So you're acknowledging the request, stating your current priority, and deferring it slightly, putting the onus back on them to follow up if it's truly important.
Exactly. It buys you time, respects your existing commitments, and often filters out the non-essential requests right there. Boundaries are the physical manifestation of that simplicity theme we talked about. They are essential for protecting your focus.
That, no, framed correctly, is genuinely a powerful tool against overwhelm. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the fantastic mental shortcut the source suggests, what you called the prioritization filter.
Yes. This is all about the practical power of regularly asking yourself one simple question. Will this matter in a year?
Okay, will this matter in a year? That question seems deceptively simple, but you're saying it tackles two big psychological issues at once, anxiety and prioritization. How?
Well, first, for anxiety, it acts as an immediate check against our cognitive biases. Humans are heavily influenced by things like the recency effect, whatever just happened feels huge, and the availability, heuristic, vivid, or easily recalled problems seem more important.
So, that stressful email that just landed, or getting stuck in traffic, or a minor disagreement, they feel enormous in the moment.
Right. They dominate your mental landscape. But when you force yourself to ask, okay, honestly, will this specific thing matter at all a year from now? You engage your rational brain, you look through a longer-term lens, and the answer for most daily anxieties is instantly, no, absolutely not. That realization deflates the anxiety balloon and saves you immense emotional energy.
Okay, that's the anxiety piece. How does it help with prioritizing actual tasks or decisions?
It acts as an instant filter for gauging the true weight or leverage of an action. Let's say you're deciding how to spend your afternoon. Option A is spending 4 hours tweaking the formatting on a minor internal report. Option B is spending 4 hours brainstorming the core strategy for a potential new product line.
Okay.
Asking, will this matter in a year? Makes the choice obvious. The report formatting. Almost certainly zero long-term impact.
Right.
The new product strategy. Potentially huge impact. The question instantly guides you towards meaningful, high-leverage work and away from low-leverage busyness.
It's an internal test for significance, a defense against the tyranny of the urgent but unimportant. Love it. Okay, next in the toolkit, we need to hammer this home. Cultivating simple, compounding habits.
Yes, this is the how. This is the methodology for actually implementing everything else we've discussed. It's all about cultivating those really simple, repeatable routines.
Like the gratitude list, the short reflection period you mentioned, maybe just taking 3 conscious breaths before reacting to bad news. The key seems to be the simplicity.
Absolutely vital. We are not aiming for massive, immediate life transformations here, because those rarely stick. The source material is really unequivocal on this point.
Why do small habits work better?
It's the power of incremental change, of compounding. It's the small things done with unwavering consistency that accumulate over time into significant, durable life changes. Think about it. A 2-minute meditation practice done every single morning for a year will fundamentally alter your baseline presence and response control far more effectively than some ambitious hour-long session you only manage to do once a month when you feel inspired.
That consistency builds the muscle, but it also builds self-trust, doesn't it? You learn that when you set a small goal for yourself, you actually follow through.
Exactly. It reinforces the discipline theme through tiny, manageable wins. It protects your focus with minimal friction. It's the slow, steady path to real change.
Okay. Values, boundaries, the 1-year filter, simple habits. What's the final piece of the toolkit?
We have to bring it full circle. We need to loop back to the ultimate check for maintaining that internal peace, the idea that really ties everything together, re-emphasizing acceptance.
Right. The final check on the whole system. It connects back to the dichotomy of control and being present.
It does. Because after you've done the work, defined your values, set your boundaries, focused your effort on aligned action through disciplined habits, You still have to confront the reality that there are things you cannot control.
The actions of other people, unexpected external events, sudden obstacles, just the general inherent chaos of life.
Exactly. Those things will still happen. The crucial final step is to internalize that these external events, these things outside your control, do not have to determine your inner state, your peace.
So instead of letting those external forces knock you off balance every time,
Your entire focus shifts. It shifts away from wishing reality were different and onto formulating the best possible response, a positive, values-aligned, effective response given the circumstances as they are.
that feels like the ultimate expression of leveraging control, where you actually have it in your response.
It is. That's the definition of using the dichotomy of control for maximum benefit. It's the piece that comes from truly realizing your primary job isn't to dictate outcomes, because you can't, but simply to respond as well and as virtuously as you possibly can to whatever comes your way.
When you get that, when you really internalize it,
Your life stops feeling like this constant draining battle against reality, and it starts feeling more like an intentional process, a process of growth, of learning, of skillful response. That's the highest level of clarity this philosophy seems to offer. Hashtag, outro.
wow, okay, this has been an incredibly thorough, really practical deep dive into the core ideas of focus on what matters. If we were to synthesize the absolute core message for everyone listening,
I'd say it's this. True clarity, the kind that leads to sustainable peace and meaningful progress. It's found through a combination. It's robust internal control, mastering your mindset, your responses, staying present. That's paired with consciously simplifying your external life. And all of it needs to be anchored by consistent, disciplined action that's rooted in your own clearly defined values.
that blend of internal mastery and intentional external action, it really does feel like a powerful, actionable pathway, especially for anyone listening who feels that chronic overwhelm, that sense of being pulled in too many directions.
Mm.
This offers a way to regain clarity, align your energy effectively.
You make sure that your daily efforts, your busyness, actually contributes to your long-term sense of meaning rather than just feeding short-term distraction.
And speaking of distraction, since the guidance puts such a strong emphasis on action and discipline, particularly using boundaries to protect your focus, we want to leave you, our listener, with one final, maybe provocative thought to consider. If simplifying your life truly requires reducing distractions to find that clarity we've been talking about, what is the single biggest, highest friction distraction in your life right now? Maybe it's an app on your phone. Maybe it's a recurring commitment you dread. Maybe it's just a time-wasting habit.
Think about that one specific thing.
What is that single distraction that you can commit right now to saying an intentional no to just for the next 48 hours? As an experiment in protecting your most valuable, non-renewable resource, your attention.
Just one thing. What will you deliberately say no to starting today so that you can finally start saying a more resounding yes to what you've decided truly matters?
Something to think about. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you next time.